experience. I am so excited. Hello, 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 beautiful souls. Here we are on our Tuesday Confessions of an Awakened Boss Lady. Today we have an amazing guest. We have Sheena Eizmendiz with us. She is going to share with us some beautiful experiences. She's going to have with us a conversation that's a bit behind the veil around how she got here as a mindset coach, as a facilitator to different trainings, as a supporter to corporate. So I want to welcome you, Sheena. Thank you so much for saying yes to being here. How are you?
I'm doing great and happy to be here with you and your audience.
I'm super excited about having you on here because I know from having followed you, from having connected with you, that you've gone through some stuff. You've gone through some experiences.
You think?
To say the least, right?
Yeah.
And our purpose here, the mission to this, is for us to really come in a little bit behind the veil and connect with our awakened boss ladies, the women that are looking to tap into all of the versions of who they are and really move upwards and forwards from a place of like self-reconciliation and from a place of truth telling. And one of the ways in which we do that is by sharing our truths around moments where we've gone into breakdown and moments where we've felt like things aren't really working out for us. And then in hindsight, we realize that they were happening for us. And we're doing that in the hopes to inspire, to help women feel connected. So I'm excited to start to have these conversations with you.
I'm excited too. I'm excited because I don't know if I ever told you, Patty, in conversation, just when I've seen you, and I know it's been a while, that I actually trademarked several years ago, about 10 years ago, the phrase "speak your truth" in apparel. That's how much I stand behind the notion of speaking the truth, right?
Yes.
So I love that this is what, this is all about, and what you represent as well, and the women that you serve.
I love to hear that. I had no clue. That's a powerful piece because I feel like there's so much trend around, be truthful, be authentic, all the things that we hear. And the reality of what that means is something that I feel is being missed, right? How profound it is to really speak your truth, right? So I love that you're connected to that frequency because that's going to like light up what we're about here. So are you ready to start with some of the questions? I've got my first question for you.
I'm ready. Bring it on, girl.
I always like to start with what are you passionate about currently? How are you contributing to the collective as a light worker? How do you feel you're coming in and like holding your torch? I'd love to hear what's up for you.
Great question. I think that when it comes to passion, at least I speak for myself personally, passions change. Sometimes they're intertwined with our mission, and I strongly believe that. A lot of times when you're very clear on your mission, then it's a lot easier to be passionate about what you're doing or what you're pursuing. For me, my passions have changed and shifted a lot in the last 5 years. There's been a huge pivot. And so I think that as we grow and we stumble upon so many different experiences in life, you start to look at things a little different. It's almost like you start shifting and pivoting, and then now you're passionate about different things.
Yes.
So for me, I think that I started my business 23 years ago, and I've been in the personal development space since. But in the last 5 years, a lot of my passion has also been to serve in the leadership space in terms of corporate America and helping leaders and their teams. So I've had a lot of passion in that area, especially in the diversity, equity, and inclusion. I love that. I'm super passionate about that, helping amplify voices within an organization as well, and helping leaders become better leaders, just developing them.
I love that. I love that. And it's so interesting, right? Because there's a couple of things that I'm extracting from what you're sharing, which I want the women on here to get, right? Because a lot of times we don't give ourselves permission to be ever changing, right? There's this concept of, we're going to find the thing and it's going to be the thing that's the thing forever. And that's not the truth. The truth is that we are of an evolving nature. And that makes us two things: ever changing, so our passions can shift, right? And also multi-passionate, where we can be passionate about several things, and giving ourselves permission to have the bandwidth to be able to take on all of these things that we truly love. So I love that you positioned it that way, right? Because that is permission that you've given yourself to be okay with shifting, evolving. Cool.
I love that you use the word permission. I'm going to tell you why, because I'll share something with you. When I started getting this passion about wanting to serve in the corporate space, being that I had an office for so many years, I had those one-on-ones. And for me, that was so meaningful, working with people and helping them really overcome so many of their challenges. My specialty for so long was in trauma, sexual abuse, rape, addictions, depression, you name it. And kind of giving myself permission to know that it was okay to continue to serve, but I'm serving in a different space, right? I remember coming to terms with myself, and it was almost like this, is this what I should be doing? Because my work has always been like in this office, one-on-one, working with people. And here I'm stepping into corporate, the one thing I was never interested in, right? Coming in and working with these individuals, which is a very male dominant arena in most cases, at least for the very large organizations that I serve.
Yes.
And giving myself permission to be okay with that, and knowing that I'm still serving. I'm just serving in a different space, but I'm still serving at the end of the day.
Yeah.
It took me a little time there to come to terms with
that. It takes that, because what you're describing is that moment of coming inward, checking in with self, really connecting with the versions of you that are still in past identities, right? Kind of enrolling them. Enrolling them and letting them know we're going to be fine. This is exciting. This is new. And then from that place of having like all the girls on board,
yes,
you move into what's next. And again, I see the way you merge from one identity that we can sometimes be stuck in, to giving yourself the permission to go into another identity. And this is connecting to my heart, Sheena, because I come from corporate. I did my 30 years, right? In what I would call, like, I did my time in the prison, right? And I left corporate back in 2014, and I didn't want to have anything to do with it. Like, I was done. I was like, I'm gonna coach. I first went in as a grief coach because that's what I was experiencing, right? So I came in as that. And then I said, women entrepreneurs, the ones that want to strive, the ones that want to, and recently, which not many people know, I've come back into corporate a little bit, and I'm doing, because I feel like corporate right now is the front lines.
Oh, yes.
That's where the dismantling is happening. That's where the expiring of old systems and beliefs is happening. And if we light workers, right, people that are holding the torch and way showers aren't coming in at this time to support, it could be a very scary zone. So I'm all in for going back in to corporate and really holding space for all the people that are there. And I love that you're talking about it, because as there was the great exodus, right, corporate almost became the bad word. And it's not necessarily that. If you still feel connected to your passion and your purpose there, you can be an entrepreneur that sees things differently, that brings in the new, which is what's being created now. So I love that you're in there.
Certainly. It's time for correction. When the whole great resignation was going on, it was so the trend of it. I used to say, no, the great resignation is the great correction. this is an opportunity that's being brought into corporate. Yes, did it cause major disruptions? Absolutely, at all levels. But we're seeing today that little by little, there's been an adjustment. They're going through an adjustment period, and it's benefiting everybody, really, at the end of the day.
Yeah, and this is leading us right into what I want to talk about next, right? Because that was a breakdown that in its moment felt like, oh my God, the sky is falling type of experience. And we're now starting to see how it was happening for everyone's benefit, the ones that have left, the ones that have stayed, and the organization in itself, right? The culture, all the things, right?
Certainly.
So I want to talk a little bit about that. But before, I want to kind of get in a little bit closer, kind of get in a little bit more intimate with you. And I want to hear vulnerably something that you could share with us that we don't know about you. Like, if you really knew me, you would know that.
That's a good question. I like that. I would say that those who know me, right, and I'm just speaking kind of in third person, those who know me would probably describe me as someone who's very no nonsense, very little filter. I'm diplomatic, and I try to definitely be mindful, right? I never say anything, and I really never say anything with the intention to hurt, but yes, to create impact. I really believe that impact is important, and speaking my truth, I think that they would say that, and that I'm very resilient. That's probably one of the things that a lot of people, unless you really know me and you know my backstory and some of the challenges that I faced in my life, the rolling in the mud, I've had those encounters several times. I've built resilience in a really powerful way. I really consider myself to be resilient. And I think those that know me would say the same thing. I'm very resilient. That muscle is it's pretty strong.
You've built that muscle from experience, from the living workshop that is life, right? And I love that you say truth, that you speak truth, and that you take a stand for what you believe in, and that you come in with a sense of urgency, right? And I love those skills and those characteristics, because it's like we were talking a little bit ago around what are the things that are identified as masculine energy that support us, right? And I feel like those are all pieces that are very important, right? The resilience, the coming in with, very fierce, right? Versus the second guessing, the uncertainty, maybe the questioning. And it's very different to be in that energetic than to be in what would be the toxic version of something like that, which is like tyrant, the bitchy, right? That we all know about, right? So the reason I'm highlighting this, Sheena, is because part of what I love to create is that line where you can hold your feminine, where you can hold your masculine, both in a harmonious blend, both where they're supporting each other, where they're in sponsorship of each other, without going into the immature, toxic, kind of, sticky versions of everything, where you're either collapsing completely or bitchy witching through life, right? There's resilience, truth telling, fierce queen that can come through. And I love that you're sharing it that way. Thank you for introducing yourself.
Thank you. Thank you for giving me and allowing me the opportunity to do so.
That's what we do. We reintroduce ourselves. So are you ready to tap into maybe a deeper conversation around that breakdown or that struggle that you feel gave you the quantum leap into, that next version unexpectedly, maybe?
Yeah, that's a good question. That's a powerful question. I think that for me personally, it probably happened about 2012, 2013, I would say 2013. And I know that you're aware, but some people are not. It's just part of my story, right?
I'm hoping you would go there.
I always go there, girl. Always. There's no filter here. I was at a point in my life, in my career. At that point, it was about 14 years into my career. I was, I think I could say I was in a good space, right? In terms of all of the work I had put in. I had built my business from the ground up. I was 23 years old when I started my business. I was still in college, and I took a leap. I was like, the hell with it. Let's try it. You know, what's the worst that can happen? I fail. Okay. You know, and take something else.
Yeah.
And needless to say, during that period of 2012, I was being charged for a crime that I had not actually committed. And I went to prison. I went to federal prison. But at that point of my business, I was working on a reality show that was going to be launched. It was going to be called Miami Advice, actually. And I had this, I was a host at a radio show with Y100, with iHeart. I had a contract with iHeart. And there was all these things that I had been working on in the course of those 14 years. I mean, really working on. And I had finally got into that place in my career where I was like, yes, I got there. And one day it was all gone. It was all gone. And I have to tell you, it was the blessing in disguise. It really was. When I was finally released in 2013, it was a 21-month sentence.
Wow.
I came out with nothing. Everything that I had built was gone. It had disintegrated. It disappeared just like that. But it was very humbling. It was a very humbling experience. It gave me an opportunity to roll in the mud, like I like to say. I did. I rolled in the mud, and it was a good experience because it gave me an opportunity to look at myself from within. I realized that I was just looking outwardly all the time. And that period gave me that opportunity to find myself, to tap into my weaknesses, to also discover some other strengths I wasn't even aware of.
Yes.
But I think most importantly, and I always have to share this, how important it is, the skills that we develop through our life, because I never knew that I would experience something like that.
Right.
And I really didn't. And what really, looking back, what really got me through was being able to go into that toolbox that I had been sharing with my clients, right? With my coaching clients and my work for 14 years and all of these skills that I had learned and developed, right? Being able to go there and use them on myself is probably what made the biggest difference. And why in 2013, when I came out and I had nothing, I didn't have $1 to my name. I didn't have a car. I didn't have a home. I didn't have anything. I was basically homeless. I had an opportunity to rebuild, and I did so in 6 months.
Wow.
Which is, even sometimes for me today, when I look back and even speaking about it, I'm like, how the hell did I do that?
Yeah. Yeah. That sounds super powerful. It's almost one of those stories where it deserves a moment of silence. Kind of.
I told that before.
It's like, it's a very humbling experience. It always shows you self, and from there you rebuild. That's one of our Facebook attendees sharing to you. This has so many nuggets. I'm gonna slow it down a little bit, Sheena.
Bring it down a notch.
You came in with some fierce, powerful teachings here, and is it okay if I extract and reflect back?
Absolutely.
What I feel like I heard? Like, the first thing that I heard that I feel is important to mention is how, it took you coming inward, because there was a lot that was being outward focused, outward manifested. And that's the whole premise of my work, the whole premise of what I do here, the whole premise of the group, right? Like, how can we focus on the inner landscape of who we are to then know that the outer will be a manifestation of that? So you have just, in your lived experience, shared how much that mattered, right? Most of what I tell a woman is, if you develop a healthy relationship with self, everything else will come in to match that. And I'm hearing you saying, I had to go inward. I had to take on the tools that I would offer to someone else and, make them the tools that were my lifeline, right? I had to incorporate my skills, the things I believe, the tools. And the other piece that I think is important to extract here is, and this is something I tell everyone I work with, women entrepreneurs, women in corporate, everyone, like, you are your own first client. You are your own first client. So if you are trying to figure out the content and the copy and what are the steps that you're going to take to support, like, go back and look at your life, sister, right?
Yeah.
It's all there. You've done it so many times before, but we're so into looking at it outside of us versus inside of us. Of course, you came back and built it in 6 months. You actually went in to get it into right order, not to take away from how huge it is and how much of a beautiful, like, validation that is. And you finally put it in right order.
That's why I always say it was a gift. It was the blessing in disguise.
Yes.
It was the pause that I needed. It really was. I was really going at a very fast pace. Very fast pace. I was growing very quickly and all over the place. It looked great from the outside. It looked fantastic. It was like, whoa, you are shining. From the inside, I was a hamster in a wheel.
Yeah.
That's just it.
Yeah. Yes. And there was the success. That's the external, right? Manifestation. But the inside, maybe, you let me know, but I know it was my experience. The inside felt empty, like a failure, like I didn't know.
It was a mess. The word was a mess.
A mess. Yeah. And you can't get very far that way. It does take coming in and really connecting with self and really reconciling with self and really befriending yourself and enrolling all the ladies, like I say, like all the versions of us, the little girl, the fearful one, the fierce one, the blinded warrior, right? That's how I walk through life. I was the warrior. I didn't know what I was fighting, but we were going. And even she needed to be brought in because she was exhausted, right? Like, I don't even know what I'm fighting for anymore. I don't even know why I'm so angry anymore. And bringing her in and tucking her in and letting her know that she's safe requires that, so that we can get back out here. Yes. And do what we came here to do. I love all the juiciness that you're bringing to this. There's a lot in this. And really, Sheena, thank you for being so vulnerable, because I know you share your story and your mess is your message, and you take it as part of how you demonstrate your truth telling every day. It's like, here's my, here's the thing that other people wouldn't mention, right? So I really want to give you a deep bow for that, because what one woman does for herself gives other women permission to do it as well, right?
I believe that.
You're showing other women that you did difficult things. You didn't hide behind shame, which is our go-to. Right? Let's talk for a minute about, the socially accepted options that you had, right? You had victim. You had shame, right? You had, going into like the rageful, angry, like they injusted, right? There was so many options there where many people would have been like, yeah, she's got the right. And you didn't choose that. That's deep.
It's so interesting as I hear you say this, and it kind of just brings me back to those times, right? And I think that one of the biggest things that I took from that experience is that I was in this constant state of doing and not being. And that's why when I say, there was this mess. I was this mess. That was the mess, right? And the constantly doing. And I think a lot of times, especially as women, we take on so much. I had been a single mom since I was 23.
Yeah.
So with a 4-year-old and she was 11-month old, so 11-month-old baby,
Oh my
single
God.
mom in college. So doing all these things, building a business, trying to find some level of balance and success.
Wow.
We take on so much. We get in this habit of doing that we forget to be. And sometimes that's just it. The only way to find that center is in having that major pause. And sometimes life brings you that pause forcefully so you can just be.
Yeah.
I realized I needed that.
Yeah. That's the most powerful piece. Like understanding that a lot of times when we experience these initiations that are like the dark night of the soul, and we think we're not going to make it to the other side of it. And it's exactly the precise piece for us to be able to like, right? Because it wouldn't have happened the other way. There would have been so many other, ways in which there would have been breakdown, because it was the hamster in the wheel. It was the running on empty. It was the doership. It was the putting everything and everyone before yourself, right? The doing before the being. And getting things into right order is going to happen with you or without you.
Sure will. Mm-hmm.
And there's a piece I want to share, because like it happened to me. I got a lot of wake up calls. And like there were things with my marriage, there was things with my finances. There were things that were making me try to listen. Like this is like things that were literally in someone else's view of a super breakdown. But I was the kind that I was taught, like, get up and keep fighting, get up and keep fighting, get up and keep fighting. So my resistance to pain was so high that I missed a couple of the calls inward. I was just like, bring it, let's go, bring it, I got it. It was just like, oh, life is hard, so let's just go, don't complain, let's just make it happen, fix it, clean it, cover it up, do whatever to get it out of the way and keep going until I just couldn't. The biggest breakdown, which was losing my mother, was the one thing I could not control, I could not fix. And it's a resistance to pain, right? And I'm saying this because initiations don't always have to be hard. Like we're being awakened, we're being brought upwards and forwards, but sometimes we're so in our human that we miss the calling, and then it gets louder. For me, it had to get like loud.
I can relate, girl. I can relate.
Yes. Yeah. Tell me a little bit about what you're relating to in this.
Those signs, those messages, there was sort of this inner part in me, this intuitive part that, kept saying for years on end, like, this is not sustainable, the way that I was doing things.
Yeah.
Right? But the more I was growing in the business, the more I was growing, I was like, wait, and I was trying to keep up with it. I was trying to keep up with that growth. And there was that detachment between myself and what was happening around me. There was a massive gap there that needed to be filled. And really the only way to fill it was by pausing and just taking life in, right? And changing my perspective. So that's why I say I can relate, because the messages were there. It was constantly popping up somewhere or another. And whether it was through a third person, or it was just the intuition itself speaking and saying, hey, you're exhausted. You're running on fumes. You're doing too much.
Yes.
But I was like, shh. We don't have time for this. There's no time for whining. There's no time for crying. There's no time for doing that.
Yes. And this is such a powerful piece, because we've been conditioned to shush, right? We've been conditioned to domesticate. We've been conditioned to tame the versions of us that have the intuition, that are giving us the insight, right? That gut feeling, that calling, right? We've been conditioned to not look at those, to look the other way. And if, the message is like, if you're a woman that's hearing it, like, hear us now, how often we heard it, how often we experienced it, how often we looked the other way, how often we made it wrong, how often we played it down, how often we bypassed it, like all the things, right? All the things. For me, it was a little bit different. There was so much in there, like, girl, but I was like, I call it secondary shame, right? Like, I had so much. I'm first generation American. My parents are Dominican immigrants. They kind of brought me here, and I was their American dream. Like, I got into the school, the college, the education, the degree, corporate America, glorious position, traveling, everything, right? Expat in Central America, like everything, right? And I felt shame to share that I wasn't happy. Like, who am I to not be happy? Like the like almost selfish, ungrateful. So there was secondary shame around me not being happy. I convinced myself that I needed to be happy. What are you talking about, girl? This is the thing. This is the dream. This is the thing. And look at my family and look at my other family members, and no one has, and the things that I had and the access, and that kept me quieting it down, like putting a lid on it and showing up with a smile. So it could look like anything. Not listening to our gut, not listening to our truth could look like anything, right? Especially when you're putting, like, for me, I was my mom's dream. So that was my job, to make sure that it came true and through, right? And there are so many moments when I could have just had a truth telling conversation. I could have found that version of me that wanted to do different things, that that wanted freedom, because that's what I'm about, freedom and teaching. And there's so many ways you can do those things, right?
Without
So
having to sacrifice your true happiness, right?
yes. So this has been exciting. I want to hear, like, what else would you say to a woman? So let me position it this way. What would you say to the version of you
Mm.
today?
Mm.
Yeah, because, like, fingers pointed inwards to ourselves, right? We're teachers, and being a teacher is easy, right? Let's bring ourselves into the picture. What would you say to the version of you that was, you know, I want to hear what you would say to the version of you before you had that experience that you had, like the version of you that was convincing yourself to keep going. What would be your advice to her today?
Mm.
Yeah.
I would say breathe, embrace yourself. But with that, I would add, there's things that are going to happen in life that sometimes you're not going to understand. Not at the moment, anyhow, right? Not
Yeah.
at the moment. But to trust that everything that happens to us is for our highest good.
Oh my God.
I would say that, and that I don't control anything. That was one of the biggest lessons too that I took away, is this idea that I can control certain situations, right? Because it was my ego speaking. And having gone through that experience really was just mind blowing, because it
Yeah.
really taught me you don't control anything
Anything
at
else.
all.
Yeah. That was my biggest learning as well, that I had controlled so much. I had so much in check that I literally was playing God
Mm-hmm.
until I wasn't. And I was in control of nothing. And the identity crisis that I experienced in that was severe.
But necessary.
And necessary, absolutely necessary. So it definitely, hearing you say how it was, what happened for you. One of my talks is my mother's death saved my life. Because these are life-saving experiences that look like fire.
Sure do.
So I love that you've come together with those two. That's so powerful. So we are at the end of our interview. I am so honored and feeling so enlightened by your energy, by your share, by your vulnerability, by your eloquence in this path that you've been chosen to walk through this journey. And I'd love for you to let us to say goodbye with a quote or a thought that you may want to leave us with.
I like that.
Yeah.
You know, one that's very, I would have to say, very close to my heart, and it means a lot to me, is a quote by Neil Donald Walsh, and it's life begins at the end of your comfort zone.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Do it with
That's
fear.
what I would share.
Yeah. Get uncomfortable.
We never want to get uncomfortable, but we have to in order to really experience what life is all about on the other side.
That's so beautiful. So let me hear it again, just so that it can land in my system.
Life begins at the end of your comfort zone.
Yeah, life begins at the end of your comfort zone. I love that. It talks about, doing it afraid. It talks about being willing to get uncomfortable and the necessity of it. And it even speaks to me, like, as I hear it in my minds, in my heart, I'm hearing that's what we signed up for when we said we'll go into this human life.
Sure is.
What we signed up for, right? Our soul could be comfy, but coming into human is where it gets serious.
It's interesting.
I love that you're signing us off with that. I'm going to give you a deep bow. Many thanks. We're going to end here, but stick on the call with me. I just want to, say a final intimate goodbye. Thank you so much, Sheena.
Thank you.
Stay in the group. There may be some questions from some girls. We'll do the replay. I'll share it with you. Lots of love. Have an amazing afternoon.
Thank you so much.